What's up, everybody? We're just one episode away from the end of the boys' show after 507, and there's a ton that we got to get into. Homelander's feeling better than ever, and the boys reached a new low this week. Let's dive in. The episode got going with O Father, and David Diggs is so damn good in this role. He gets you with his absurdity in this mega church bit, kind of like those idiot gemstone kids would, but he's really filling the gap that was left by the death of Firecracker. Then on the other hand, Homelander's making more holes to be filled. Pause. Where's Tech Knight? As we find him chilling in the Oval Office. At first, I was kind of, disappointed that this was a shot of him in that chair, but then he smashes the president's head like a pumpkin. And like I said, he's feeling that immortality. That's why it would be so good if Sage, she pulled something and he doesn't actually have V1. I still have hope there. But I've lost all hope on the Gen V front. Marie and Jordan came into the picture this week for all of 2 minutes, and it was very underwhelming. They brought Starlight some intel on O Father's whereabouts, and I'd assume that that was gathered by Emma, the shrinking blonde. She spied on Dean Cypher back in Gen V Season 2, and with her powers, it's essentially her role with the Guardians. All that's fine. That's not where my issues lie with their involvement. It's their screen time that's my problem. From The Boys Season 4 to Gen V Season 2 to The Boys Season 5, it was very clear, to me at least, that these stories were intertwined. What I'm saying is, Marie's line about her powers being greatly exaggerated felt like a message to us, the audience. We all thought they were going to use that setup, what they set up for this season, but nah, that was just for shits and giggles. With that being said, there's another pretty major thing that happened off screen between episodes. The boys got themselves their uranium chamber. I just assumed that, they stole it, or at the very least, they stole the uranium from Fort Harmony, but as Butcher's influence continues to impact Kimiko, mixed with, the piece that she found out in the Philippines, their new plan is to turn her into Soldier Boy. Don't worry, guys. Homelander's got V1. So what? We got McDonald's at home. Jokes aside, Sister Sage might not end up being the smartest person in the world, but she knows ball because Kimiko would in fact be deader than Epstein if their new plan isn't flawless. It's too bad they didn't install a vent in that uranium cell. If you know, you know. Then over with the others, Huey and Butcher get caught at Vought Studios by the psychic hero Synapse. What I found interesting about this trip, though, was Kripke going back to the Frenchie at Fort Harmony bag. After those two got caught, Starlight and MM hit the Benjamin to avoid the psychic's powers, but it's, a bit different here at the base. It was rejecting the manipulation for Frenchie, and here it was more kind of fortifying their minds with inner peace. From there, we saw Homelander disband the Seven. This goes back to what I've already mentioned with the V1, or what he believes is V1, flowing through his veins. He's back on his A game, but the Deep, he doesn't take this news well, and his moping gave us my favorite cameo from this entire show, all 5 seasons, all 2 seasons of Gen V. It's Samuel L. Jackson as a hammerhead shark. He's the best. The Deep wasn't the only one feeling the pressure, though. Ashley's handling Homelander's ascension just as poorly, and I've got a theory with her. I think Ashley's going to go to the boys for help in the finale, and that's how we're going to find out Sage's true plan. Back Ashley is going to read her mind, realize that she switched out Bombsight's V1 with a fake dose, and use that information to earn the team's trust. But like I said, that's just a theory. Getting back to the episode, I thought this movie screening bit about controlled feedback in Hollywood was great. They bring a mix of grifters and a random selection of soups into the screening, everything from that influencer cat to the son of Cameron Coleman. At least I believe that he was his son, especially with how his story goes. Until I get official confirmation that they weren't related, I'm of the mindset that they are. That wasn't the only time I was questioning family trees in this episode, though. This scene with Homelander and Soldier Boy really shifted the way that I think about that family. Not Homelander putting his father back on ice. That wasn't much of a surprise, but Soldier Boy, he said that he gave him the V1 because that's what Clara, Stormfront, Liberty, whatever you want to call her, would have wanted. I used to be a sheep in the sense of, what they told us about Homelander's mom was true, but not anymore. Now I'm starting to think that he was banging his mom. Then going back to that screening, I want to focus on O Father for a second because, I mentioned how David Diggs is filling Valerie Curry's shoes on the cast, but O Father is filling Firecracker's shoes in the sense that, he's realizing why she turned out the way she did. All he wanted was to spread his message and get back to relevancy with his church, and now it's just Homelander, 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 Homelander. The ends aren't justifying the means. He's still playing ball though, knowing what happened to Firecracker as he orders Dognot and She-Line to execute the non-believers, but Starlight and MM stop them, delivering the survivors to the farm that the Gen V crew's living at. I call it the Forgotten Farms. In all seriousness, the episode closes. Homelander closes in on the boys' base of operations. It's just Frenchie, Kimiko, and Sage there, and Kimiko's pursuit of victory over survival passes over to Frenchie. He tries to get Homelander in the uranium cell, kamikaze style, but it ends with Kimiko feeling the pain that she was going to cause to him. Now it's time for Sage to step up as the brains of this team with Frenchie gone, which it feels like maybe that should have happened in this episode, but it's going to be a finale thing for better or worse. This was still a mixed bag for me overall though. It was a bit better than 506. It just doesn't feel like I'm about to watch the final episode of an entire show next week. I don't feel that build up, and then you add in the Gen V character disaster. It would almost be better if they didn't show up at all. Like, no offense to them, just ditch that storyline completely. That's more of a shot at Kripke. I like the actors from that show, but my final prediction is that Homelander is going to win because I left with more hope for the good guys taking the dub, and I think that's why it's going to be the big man emerging from the battle. And so that's going to do it for my breakdown of the penultimate episode from The Boys Season 5. Let me know what you guys thought about 507 down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Smash that like button on your way out and make sure you have a great day.